Good morning, respected members, our panelists, and viewers. I'm Trupti from Team Credai MCHI. Thank you for joining us today on a very special webinar. This is the 10th episode of Credai MCHI webinar, Key to Lockdown, and the key to lockdown is staying connected. We have received overwhelming response of viewers in last 9 episodes and hence have changed the format of the show. That is, only our panelists and co-hosts will be seen and heard. Everyone else, you may share your views on the chat, but your video and audio will be on off. I also take this opportunity to thank and express our gratitude towards everyone working at the front line and helping us stay safe. That is, the doctors, police force, Swachhata workers, people providing us with continuous supply of food and milk, and everyone risking their lives for us. Now, I request our President Sir to set the tone of the day session.
Right. So, thank you, Trupti. And friends, I would like to acknowledge the wonderful work that Dharmesh, Preetham, Rajesh Prajapati, Jayesh Gandhi, the Crida MCHI Secretariat, and many others who have, put this 10 episodes, and I would term these episodes as key to unlock the lockdown. So I would say it's the key to unlock the lockdown. And today we have the three finest real estate professionals, and I wouldn't mind to say three finest real estate professionals in the world. I would say they are so capable, they are so nice, and everybody has seen their work. But probably this is the first time that we all are in a position to see them kind of virtually in person. They, I'm sure, like me, many others would aspire that we step up our abilities to their level of professionals' capability. At least this is what was running in my mind when I googled about them and when I heard about them. And we have Mr. Anshuman Magazine, who's going to be the moderator today. He is the CEO and the head of CBRE of India, Asia, Middle East, Africa, and he's going to bring before us experience of China and a few other countries as to what happened over there. And we have then Mr. Mohit Malhotra. If somebody asks Mohit that अगर आप रियल एस्टेट प्रोफेशनल नहीं है तो क्या करते, तो बोले मैं एक्टर होता. Mohit, just a joke. Mohit is a wonderful person. All of us know about Godrej Properties, and then we have Mr. Shrikant Joshi, who heads real estate of L&T. As we say this, I believe that L&T is taking care of 160,000 workers as we speak now, and they all are at various projects, various sites of L&T, and so all of us know that Godrej Properties and L&T are two finest real estate companies of Asia, of the world, of India, and we welcome you, sir, today, and we eagerly look forward to hear you, to have your views. And as I say again, what would be the key to unlock the lockdown? Over to Dharmesh or Preetham for the next.
Would like to request Mr. Anshuman Magazine to kindly say a few words and then moderate the session for us. Thank you, Anshuman. Good morning to you.
Good morning. Thanks. Thank you for the opportunity. Dharmesh called me the other day and said that if I could speak, and I must say this is my first webinar. I've been actually hiding and not participating in webinars. I declined all other invites because I feel there's a lot of information going around, and my worry is that what more can I add? Is there anything new I can say than what is being discussed? There's too much gloom and doom, and in this situation where nobody really knows how this is going to pan out, everybody is an expert. So I was a bit shy of really coming out and waiting before I really, convey my views. But then Dharmesh called, and obviously, I could not say no. Dharmesh is one person who I feel and this is what we should follow. He's always smiling, always, in any situation. I've never seen him not smiling and not being confident. And I think that's what we need to do going into this. So thank you, Dharmesh. Thank you, MSCGI. So just quickly, I would like to, start by just going through very quickly on the markets. A lot of data has been, given out, so I'll try to restrict myself. But just as a background, I'll start with the office market. Last year, India office market saw leasing of 63 million square feet, which is one of the highest in India ever, and one of the highest in the world. There are hardly any other cities in the countries in the world which would be absorbing this kind of a space. And I remember in 95, 96, the entire absorption of office space in India was 36 million. And today, last year, we absorbed 63, the entire supply of office space in India was 36 million square feet around. And last year, we absorbed 63 million. So you can look at where the scale has gone over the period of time. Even this quarter, Jan, Feb, we started on a strong footing as far as leasing was concerned, office space. And then, of course, March, the demand dropped, and that is bringing the numbers down. Most of the leasing market is really Bangalore, Delhi NCR, and Pune. Surprisingly, Pune has been doing very well. And and before COVID-19, the demand was expected to be good, and I feel that it'll slow down, but it'll still recover. And I want to look at the opportunities. Everybody knows all the negative stuff. I think one to begin with, opportunity is, and it's a kind of a double-edged sword, but I hope it is a bigger opportunity. In last 5 years, 90 million square feet of office space has been taken by primarily American firms. Then there's another percentage is Europe. So American firms really dominate or really decide how our office market does. And I feel with what has happened because of COVID, yes, temporarily the American firms are suffering and they may slow down in decision making, but they would need to continue to cut costs and continue to offshore and outsource, and that will benefit our office market. A lot of these American firms have thousands of employees in India. They've invested big time, and they will expand here. India is an established offshoring, outsourcing technology hub of the world, with a proven track record of delivery of quality service at a lower cost, and that will continue. Rupee devaluation will keep our cost of labor and occupancy costs down. In fact, interestingly, I've said this in the past, India is one of the few countries, or maybe the only country, I don't know of a parallel, since last almost 20 years, our rental has remained the same in dollar terms, which is like a $1 per square foot, of course, because the average rentals have not moved up thanks to our rupee devaluation. The fit out cost of an office is approximately $40 per square foot. It has remained the same for almost 20 years, which you can imagine if you are a large multinational trying to establish yourself in India, the costs have not gone up in dollar terms for 20 years. And I can't think of any other country which can say this. Now, of course, this has happened because of currency being devalued, but it is a competitive advantage also. Then if so, and all these companies, when they, and besides all this, India does have a skilled manpower besides the cost. So what we expect that, there will be a slowdown in demand, but it will recover as things open up. CBRE did a survey of clients in India, saying that, what are the expansion plans? And the survey clearly, almost the large percentage of people said, or the company said that, look, they want to continue to expand. In fact, 90% said they will continue to expand in India next 2 to 5 years, which means the demand will continue in the country. And even the pipeline, because we dominate this office market, the pipeline looks very good. And there are, of course, a lot of discussion happening that after this working from home, there'll be a big shift. There'll be less demand for office space because people will work from home, etc. But the fact is, yes, to some extent, but humans need to interact. You have to go out and work. Also, there are talks about, thanks to health and safety, there'll be more space required for office. And then, because most of the Indian homes are relatively small, there are data security issues, there's technology issues, etc. People will go back to the office. And so I feel that there will be some changes, but the office market in India will continue to grow and will be a big positive for the real estate industry. Coming quickly to residential, which everybody wants to hear, and I still see there are certain positives out of this. First of all, there has been last 5 years decline in supply by almost 30 to 35%. Sales have declined maybe by 13 to 14%, but unsold inventory has also declined by 15 to 16%, and average price has increased marginally by 4 to 5%. So which really means that the supply side in most cases, the worry is that there will be oversupply. So obviously that's not happening, and also the projects have been delayed. Prices have not moved up because last time, whenever the market was in trouble, it was also because of overpricing, and the unsold inventory has come down. So all this will help when the market starts recovering. We will not be an issue where the prices are too high, or there's an oversupply issue, or there's a large overhang of unsold inventory. So all of this is, as far as I'm concerned, positive. Uh, you would know this, most of the last 5 years apartments sold, more than 70% are in 2 to 3 bedroom category, and 80% are up to the value of 1.5 crores. And Mumbai and Pune are more than 50, slightly more than 50% of the market, or residential market in India. So overall, I feel the residential, no doubt there will be short-term pain, and I think this pain this time will be more. However, the market will come back. The biggest strength India has going forward is that there will be a lot of urbanization taking place. There are many numbers. One number is in next 10 years, 200 million people will shift to urban areas, and obviously they need housing. So I feel that we are very lucky that we live in a country like India where there is growth opportunity. One end, of course, we are so behind that we have to grow, but urbanization will move the needle for us, and there will be continued growth for residential. No doubt we have to go over what is happening right now. I'll quickly come to retail and industrial. Retail, of course, will take, and there's lots which has been talked about it. Recover. And already I see that the retail owners, developers, and the occupiers are working very closely to make sure that they can, work with each other to sustain the retailers, sustain the retail malls, and hopefully come out of this problem. But it will take longer. The warehousing side is the bright spot. There is recovery will be much faster than other segments thanks to e-commerce demand. And also, I would say on the industrial side, we are hoping that diversification out of supply chain out of China will benefit India. It has benefited countries like Vietnam. We have an office there, and I saw our Vietnam numbers, industrial side, do really well because they were a bigger beneficiary. Unfortunately, India in the past hasn't got enough, but I think going forward, India will get the benefit of companies. You would have all read that Japanese companies are giving incentives for some of the companies to diversify out of China, but even the US companies and others will look at other countries to put up their supply chain. India would be one of them, which they can't avoid. And it depends. It really now it's up to India and the government to really take this opportunity and go out aggressively and grab it. But either way, there will be expansion in the industrial side. I was asked to talk about China. Frankly, I'm not an expert in China. or that area, there is a report which is coming out, which we're going to take out on China real estate. We will distribute to all the members. But at the same time, interestingly, the Chinese market has recovered after this whole COVID thing happened. There's a big crash in sales, but the recovery has been much better than expected, and it's like and much shorter. This could be also because of the pent up demand. It could. What we also feel is that there has been cap on prices for residential apartments in China, and that has made a difference. Third is that China, obviously, everybody knows the better, different structure than India, where the state governments and others and the government overall really helped the market in giving subsidies, etc., and pushed and helped the industry, and that's why the sales came back very quickly. I feel this could be short term, but at the same time, the beginning of as soon as China opened up, there was a big rush of sales, and I just hope that happens in India also. But maybe China could be an exception. The other area where China obviously suffered was retail. But again, we are seeing recovery because 80 to 90% of the malls have been opened in China. The government and the retailers are working with each other, giving discount vouchers. And again, government is helping in China in giving rent, because government also owns a lot of malls and properties in China. They are more aggressive than even the private players in giving rent abatements, tax benefits, etc. So the real estate industry is getting quite a bit of support from the government, and we are seeing that retail sales are picking up again thanks to all the discounts being offered. And e-commerce or the online retail has really substantially gone up, obviously, which we'll see here also. So China, we are watching places like Singapore. As you know, they started to recover, and then the cases came up again of COVID-19, and they've shut down. And we are seeing, the market being really slow. The difference is that in places like Middle East, there is, thanks to oil prices going down, they're really impacted. There's lockdown in most of the countries. Where India will get benefit of low oil prices, the Middle East economies obviously are going to get impacted big time. Also, a lot of the countries like in Southeast Asia, which are, or I'll say Middle East, which are really impacted, are countries besides Singapore is Thailand, and the Middle East, it will be Dubai. And the reason is, again, mostly is China and tourism. Dubai used to get about 100,000 Chinese tourists coming every month, who would purchase goods worth 1.3 billion every year. So that has vanished. And then you can imagine the airlines, the taxi drivers, the restaurants. So the tourism was a big draw. And of course, the Emirates is a big part of the economy there. And if you look at Thailand, again, depends on tourism big time, commodities and manufacturing, and all of that has been impacted. So when I look around in the region, I feel India is in a better position because of our domestic consumption, which is slow, but
Anshuman, just
can
a simple request.
Yeah.
Anshuman, your voice is slightly unclear. If you could just readjust your mic or something. All of us have to go back to the olden days of readjusting the signal strength of the EA. So just if you can readjust the phone.
Can you hear me better? I will.
Better,
what I'll
better.
do,
This is better.
I will also shut my camera down a bit. I don't know if that will help. Can you hear me better?
Anshuman, you can continue your camera. I think the moment you changed, it was better. So if you can just continue doing that.
Okay, I just actually just put this closer. So sorry. So I was just saying that India is still in a better position than a lot of the Southeast Asian and Middle East countries as because of COVID-19. The only difference I see is that a lot of these countries, if you look at Singapore, the government is giving a lot of support. including Dubai, etc., because obviously they are richer countries. So in our Singapore, our own business, the government has decided that up to a certain, I think, is $40,000 salary. Till the shutdown, the government will pay 70% of the salaries of employees. This is same actually in UK. It's same in Dubai and other Middle Eastern countries where, interestingly, the government is paying salaries of all employees up who are getting a salary of up to certain number. And even in places like UK, even people who are on high salaries, the government is giving them some amount of money so that they can tide over this. So there is a huge government support in these countries. Again, coming to India, and I feel one of the reasons why we should really push the government to support, because the government here, we're not a rich country. I don't think government can really subsidize salaries for people here like is happening in other countries. But government of India can at least help in reducing the cost for people. And there was earlier I was asked that, what is the list of areas we should take government support, and there is of course a long list, at which most of you know, but I would say the focus should be on 2-3 broad things.
Anshuman sir,
Yeah.
sorry for the interruption, but we are not able to see your face. You have to adjust your camera. Really sorry for that.
No.
Thank you so much.
No. In fact, I can avoid my face. I have not had a haircut for last more than a month.
So that's
I did shave today after 5 days, but is my voice, I was more concerned about the voice, can you hear me still?
Yeah.
So I'm going to close very quickly. So I just mentioned on the government side, really reducing costs at state level, be it, stamp duties, any cess, municipal charges, any land, taxes or any charges. This is the time government should at least give 6 to 12 months abatement or stop, and wherever possible reduce cost. At the central level, again, long list. I think number one should be one-time restructuring of loans, which will make a big difference. GST reduction is an obvious one, and allowing interest subvention to come back again. Besides, we have to look at the demand side and also the supply side. So supply side, I've mentioned. On the demand side, this is the time the government should really increase the tax benefits given to anybody buying a house, and whatever they can do on that front, and obviously push to reduce interest rates. And I feel if the mortgage interest rates are reduced and further tax benefit is given, there will be demand stimulation for consumers, because prices are not gone up so much, so people would buy. And on the supply side, if the developers can get that one-time restructuring of loan and GST reduction, that will move the needle for the residential market. And lastly, I think that's what I wanted to mention. I thought I'll wait for that question, that what should be the developers doing at this time, but I will leave that for the later part. I would like to just move to my other panelists. I'll request Mr. Joshi first. I had a few questions for you, but I would request you to just give a very quick background on what is your assessment of the situation right now, and then I'll move to Mohit, and then I had just few questions to ask, and then we'll open it up. So, Mr. Joshi, over to you.
Thank you, Anshuman. Am I audible?
Yes.
Yes, perfect.
Okay. So what I will do, Anshuman has given a very crisp and clear background of the markets. I will do a little more. I will just go to the big picture first, what's happening due to COVID in the world economy, and then we'll come to what is happening in our country, the long-term trends, and then what are we doing, which can get you some ideas on what developers can do. If you like, you can pick up from there. So one of the first thing of this thing is that the whole world is affected. The idea here is not to scare, but to be prepared for the worst, and let's hope for the best. So nothing surprises us going forward. What is the fundamental is there is no known medicine for COVID as of now. And all the world estimates of a vaccine are 12 to 18 months away. So this is going to last with us for 12, 18 months in some form, maybe more controllable, but the final solution is a little distance away. If you really see the global economy, this has been the biggest drop next to the Great Depression in 1930s. So none of us alive know what happened and how to manage this impact, but it's a huge, huge impact on the global economy. The estimates keep changing every 15 days, but the latest estimates say that the US will be down by 3%, the UK will be down by 5%. China is supposed to grow at 1, and India is supposed to grow at 2 as of now. Now, why some of these figures become important? Anshuman rightly mentioned that almost 45% of our office occupiers come from the US. So we need to watch US, what happens to their economy. And there is a lot more hire and fire, and they can quickly ask people to go home. So it is important that that economy comes back, which has great bearing on our office components. Clearly, this is a health, economic, as well as a financial effect on all the countries of the world. Is it all doom and gloom? There are some very big positives for us as a country, and thankfully which were not there earlier. And if pandemic has happened, we are a little better prepared. What is the first thing we are better prepared with is our foreign exchange reserves. They're close to 470, $480 billion. And that's one of the reasons our currency has seen a lower depreciation than many other currencies. The second good part is the food stocks, which are very, very high. The third is this Jan Dhan account and the gas and a connection with the poor, which allows the government to have a little softer cushion for the poorer of the country. And of course, decision making, this lockdown and all are harsh decisions which had to be taken. However, this period of lockdown will change certain habits. I belong to L&T. We are a project company. We are a site company. We are used to traveling like hell. Every morning we are on some site. And last 20 days, we would have never done work from home in a conceivable future or scheduled meetings on that. So travel is going to take a beating. Work from home in some forms for some departments will continue. So while the offices will come back and they will grow, they will not grow back to the heady levels which they were before this. Meetings, look at this big meeting of 1,000 people happening without a hall. And we are getting used to this kind of a format. So there is going to be a lot of changes of this which will have an impact. Coming to our industry last 2-3 years, I thought if we were collectively asked, we thought there can be nothing worse than what we went through till COVID happened. However, because of DeMon, GST, RERA, all of that, there's one sector which was hit, which was the residential, but the two sectors were doing fine, the office and the mall. What COVID has done is they've taken the spread all across, and all the sectors are in some trouble. So there is a pain for next 6 months for sure. What are the bright spots? We must understand, most of us will know, our savings rate was 27 to 30% till a few years back, which has now dropped down to 15-17%. And because of this hit, people expect the savings rate to go up. When this goes up, there is a better propensity to buy for real estate than the other way around. With the hit in equity and the gold prices, real estate will again come back to the fore for majority of the customers. The land rates will see a better correction, and the mortgage to GDP ratio, which was our lowest at about 10%, I expect this also to go up over the next 3-5 years to 12 to 15%. More people will opt for mortgage. As a country, of course, we are a young population. We were more oil importing country, and the oil rates do help us and help the government to take care of this pain a lot better. So what are our long-term which are good for our real estate industry is, Anshuman mentioned, we are low urbanized country. House ownership is low. So at L&T, we remain committed to this business. We believe that this is a temporary hiccup and it will continue to grow and come back to normal as maybe 6 months, a year down the line. However, what will happen, what will developers need to do is to conserve cash, be prudent, and to prioritize on your many options which you may have. So the risk mitigation plans has to be higher and prioritization has to be higher. We are relooking at all our costs and find ways of reducing all the costs, including manpower, the number of people, projects, how to do them faster. Bombay has a very unique issue. Because of FSI, the buildings become taller and longer, and people don't have the patience to wait 4 years and 5 years. So we are working on ways how it can be done faster. Digitization is a very big area for L&T across, and we are working to do the entire sales fulfillment digitally. I think Mohit will talk about more on that. They have a lot more success in this area than we have. What are we doing for COVID? As L&T, all of you know that we are at the forefront. We have contributed about 150 crores to the PM CARES Fund. Nayanji mentioned we have 160,000 workers in our camps. We have created a fund of about 500 crores and we continue to pay them and feed them and take care of their medical and other health issues. Our health centers we have opened, our training centers we have opened for isolation centers. Our health centers we have opened, our ambulances we have made open for the government to take advantage of. And this is clearly a big emergency, can't be done by one community alone. The government, suppliers, developers, our employees, our customers and society at large will have to come together to get this out of the way very quickly. So in short, we remain bullish, we remain committed to this business. I will take some questions if there's some specifics which need to be answered, and I'll pass it on back to Anshuman to take it forward.
Thanks, Mr. Joshi. We'll come back with the questions. Just going to Mohit, if you can just just share some views for a short time, and then I had one or two questions for you. Mohit.
Hi, good morning, everyone. It's a pleasure to be here, and thanks Dharmesh for inviting me in this forum. I think most of the points are already covered by my esteemed panelist members. So I'm just going to touch upon a couple of new points. It's a once in lifetime black swan event which we are all facing. With very difficult to know what happens a week or a month later. We were almost a month back. I told my company and all the employees that it's not even possible to predict what will happen next day. And the way things have moved every week, every day, the situation changes very rapidly. So I think the only thing which I have learned in this experience is that you can't really plan for these kind of unique situations. What is really required is flexibility and agility to respond to changing market conditions, changing environment. But overall, if you ask me, this is going to be a bit of a pain in the short term. And when I'm saying short term, I'm saying it could last for maybe 2 to 4 quarters of pain for all of us. But I personally remain very bullish about the long-term story of Indian real estate market. I think from all parameters, whether urbanization, the way demand has been, the GDP growth over the last few years, and the demographic benefit which we have as a country. I think I personally remain very bullish about India growing over the next 5 to 10 years, and real estate getting the largest benefit out of that particular growth. So again, when we look at over a longish horizon of say 3 to 5 year horizon, I personally feel we are actually extremely well placed as an industry. We have been going through a pain for almost now 8 years. The volumes have dropped by almost 40% in the country. So, we are already in the bottom of the cycle. This was an unexpected event. Otherwise, most people were predicting that, things would start turning around. So maybe this postpones the turnaround of the cycle by a year. However, I feel that, whenever recovery will start, it would actually benefit all of us, and demand will come back sharply. And again, I think if I look at over the years, the investors have actually walked away from real estate as an asset class. Today, when I'm looking at our own sales, almost 90-95% of sales is through end users. Now, given the way the markets are operating, the equity portfolio of most people have actually come down by more than 50%, and the volatility which that asset class has also shaken up people, because they've lost a lot of their wealth in that. The volatility in real estate market, thankfully, is not that sharp. So I personally feel that a lot of wealth from investment perspective would also start moving to real estate, maybe after when things does settles down. Obviously, right now everyone is scared, and people are conserving cash, but sooner or later we will be out of this situation, whether it takes 12 months for vaccine, 18 months, but people will have come back and invest. And I'm quite hopeful that we as an industry will gain not only from the end user demand, but also from the investment demand, which we have not been getting for almost now 5-7 years. That may point number one. The point number two is we as developers will have to reimagine the way we do our business. Every crisis is an opportunity, and almost all inventions in the world have happened during a crisis, when some problem emerged and people found unique ways of solving that problem. So if I look at what could possibly change, we have been working on digital strategy for almost a year plus now as an organization. Just to give you a perspective, our entire sales process is today digital, and that process started almost a year and a half back. And I, almost a year and a half back, I had put a challenge to my team saying, why can't we sell real estate online? And people actually laughed and said it's impossible, that anybody will buy a 50 lakhs to a crore house online. But again, if I have to just give you statistics, in the last 15 days of March, when we went into a lockdown, we actually sold close to 800 crores of real estate, 100% digitally. So things can change very fast. The consumer behaviors can change very fast, and we need to be prepared to take benefit. I personally feel that digital will start playing a very crucial role, both for sales and for some of our operations. The other thing which I feel, which is also a wake-up call for all of us, is over-dependence on labor, and lack of use of technology in construction, especially. I personally feel that given the way labor problem is going to we are already facing, and we will continue to face labor shortage, some of these things might push us a greater deals toward the use of technology in construction, and in the long run industry will actually gain from that shift. The third thing which we are doing as an organization, and I was asked to speak about the larger industry. I think it's a no-brainer that at this point of time the whole strategy is about cash flow preservation, and taking the having the courage to ride the tide, because we don't know how long this will going to last, but we need to it could be a long haul. before the the really good time starts coming back, and which I'm extremely bullish that they will come back. So during that time, it is about sustaining this downturn and preserving cash. And also, I think it could be an interesting phase for all of us to look at partnerships. We have since the last couple of years, there have been many partnerships between the developers, which is happening. We have had many partnerships as well, but I think this could accelerate even more round of joint ventures and even more round of partnerships, and we'll be very happy to partner with all of the people and create win-win solutions for all of us. So I think these are the top three messages. Again, summarizing, the number one is we should be prepared for a short-term pain, but extremely bullish about the long-term future of our industry, and we just need to ride this tough times together. Second is it will force us to reimagine the way we do businesses, and digital and technology will play a crucial role. And the third, of course, is conservation of cash and partnerships to help each other.
Thanks, Mohit, for that.
Thank
I just wanted to ask Mr. Joshi a question. There is a lot of debate on construction labor. You run such a large, one side of the L&T has got a huge construction arm, you do development. And there are two thoughts. One was that, you see on TV, thousands and lakhs of labor. We saw a recent image in Bombay, but in Delhi, people moving back. I was on another webinar with some of the government officials, and they said, look, or actually it's a politician, they said, look, this is misleading. There are a large number of people who are in labor camps. So it's not that everybody is migrating. And then you hear the third part. Someone said, look, but if in case they are in the labor camps, they're going to just leave immediately. So what is the situation you see? Because I think you have the best picture of what is happening on the ground as far as labor is concerned, and what would be the problem, Mr. Joshi?
Yeah, Anshuman. Thanks, Anshuman. What you mentioned, the three scenarios, I guess there is some truth in all the three scenarios, and there's a reason for this truth. I'll discuss the L&T portion a little separately because the worker is secure there. But normally this labor is supplied by a small labor contractor who brings 15, 20, 30 people. And the moment the work stops or something like this happens, they know that they are not going to get paid. If they are not going to get paid and not taken care of, the worker has no other way but to run back home. That's the only place he can go and feel a little more safe than anywhere else. These guys earn hand to mouth and then they send the money back. So they don't have money to stay where they are and rent a place and eat. So a part of that is happening. In our labor camps, I must tell you, funnily, we had 120,000 when the lockdown was announced, but the day the lockdown was announced, the number jumped to 160,000. So there is, fact is, some labor got in and they knew that this is a safe place. And as I mentioned, that we are duty bound, we are taking care of them. Are they not worried about going back? Answer is yes. Some of them are really worried. They want to see how their family is, what is happening. So we do expect that moment the lockdown is open, some of them will go back. And then the worry part is you hit the monsoon and you hit the sowing season. And which is why I mentioned that the full-fledged thing may start in August or September. Now, there will be some labor will stay back, which are local, which do believe and they do appreciate all the developers who are taking care of the labor. So labor is appreciating that. I hope that number is large enough. But they will go back. They will want to see. A small percentage may never come back, Anshuman. But we expect large percentage to come back and to have the full complement by August, September.
Any suggestions you give to developers who are on this call? Because this is a major issue. We can discuss all the other big stuff, but the fact is the construction has to restart, and that can't be done without the labor. So anything else you can suggest? People can develop.
That's a good question, Anshuman. This, which I said, this pandemic is firstly a social challenge. Technically and contract otherwise a developer may not be bound to pay to his contractor on what happens at this point of time. And I can understand that everybody is not a large corporate to take that kind of call which we have taken. Having said that, I must tell you that Irfan Bhai has given a lot of food grains to the laborers we have in his camp. So in whatever way the developers can help, I think they should help. There are lot developers I hear in Bangalore, Hyderabad, they are taking care and they are giving meals. And we are giving meals to outsiders. So it is better that take care of these laborers as much as you can, because you need them in full complement when the work starts.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Shri. Just Mohit, you did mention part of what Godrej and you plan to do, but is there some kind of something you think you'll do different after this COVID issue goes away? From Godrej's point of view, that's one. And second is any silver lining which has come out of this, and what is Godrej and you planning to do different than you were doing in the past because of this crisis?
See, I don't think we'll be doing anything very different from what we were doing in past. I feel some of these, as I said, some of these changes might force us to look at more focus on technology and digital as a very large medium for sales. But I think it's a tough time. We'll all have to go through it. Just to add to Mr. Joshi's point, for us also, we have close to 10,000 laborers across sites, and the critical focus right now was to provide food grains to all of these. So, in partnership with all our contractors, we ensure that all laborers are getting food grains and the basics are taken care of. So I think the priority right now is to take care of our partners, to take care of our laborers, employees, etc. And when the world comes back, I feel there will be a strong rebound. Whenever it's difficult time this thing, whether it's 12 months, 18 months, but there will be a strong rebound. One thing which we are doing, Anshuman, right now is there's a lot of focus on design and product development, because again, thanks to technology and my own, I've never done a Zoom or a video conferencing before in my life, but today all our design meetings happen through Microsoft Teams, and currently there's a lot of work which is happening on design front. So actually it's a great opportunity to start thinking about how consumer needs will change, and is there a way we should design differently, especially in light with say COVID kind of phenomena. Will the given the way economy might have a little bit of tough time, and maybe employees people might have a bit of tough times themselves, would it shift some of the demand towards even lower ticket size units, and is there a way to design these while the sizes are small, they are much useful and user friendly. So a lot of work happening on that front, but that's a regular operations. Thankfully, this time which is available to all of us, it gives us a lot of time to think and innovate, which on a normal day-to-day business, we are always never getting time for all of these things.
Good. Thanks, Mohit. Mr. Joshi, just one thing again, which is maybe on the construction side, but anything different you're going to do after this, this, like Mohit rightly said, this is a time to introspect. This is a time to really, your mind gets that extra space. I always say, which I don't get while on a day-to-day work. Is anything different you're going to do after this? And my second question was really, I think someone has raised this also, technology in construction. Do you see that accelerating, or anything else which can be done on the construction side which can be innovative?
So Anshuman, this I see getting accelerated, What we did about a year and a half back is we first created the pod, which is for the toilets, and one of our developments, the entire pods are through, the toilets are through those pods, and which really, it's a small place, a toilet, but there are 14 trays which go in, and it takes a lot of time and headache, and the quality has also improved. We were then slowly going to the kitchens and the rest of it, and now we are saying, hey, that maybe we can't go as slowly. So our teams are working on figuring out ways of what all technology can be built. We studied, there was one of the webinars day before yesterday, and there's a ex-L&T guy who is in Singapore, and they complete the entire housing. Only the core and lift core is done in situ. Rest of it is brought and put it on one above the other, including each of the rooms, bedrooms, all finished is brought in. So a lot of those studies are going on as to how we can accelerate those. Now, none of that is going to happen in a hurry, but I guess the focus to accelerating that has increased, and there are teams working very, very hard to find out what we can do in our conditions.
Great. In fact, there are a lot of questions coming on digitization, this and that, but I guess that could be
just one more thing, Anshuman. I must tell you this. I must tell you one more thing. Within L&T Construction, we have made a separate group called L&T Next. And this group's work is to really bring all these innovations and get the time of construction very, very compressed. So, for example, on the side, you are very, very high in on the office complex. We are discussing one which typically takes 28 to 30 months, and we are challenging this team to deliver in 12 months. Now, maybe 12 may not happen, but 14 may happen. So there is a lot of work happening both on the construction side and on the development side to crash these cycles.
Great. That's very interesting. And I think that is in need of the hour also. I'm not sure how much time I have, but just maybe we are closer to top of the hour. So I will just, ask maybe one question each. Mohit, on starting with you on financing, and with all the liquidity issues, what do you see? The projects we were already before this COVID-19 happened. The industry had a liquidity issue. So where and what do you see going forward would happen on the financing side of the real estate?
So difficult to comment, Anshuman, on this question because it will depend on respective developers' balance sheet, and unless government comes back with a clear, restructuring of loans and support the NBFC and the banking sector to lend to real estate, this is a very, till now, a very individual developer-based question. From our perspective, thankfully we did a equity raise 2 years in row, and we sit on a close to a 2,500 crores of cash in the bank. So we are pretty secure as an organization, and we are actually very keen to start the construction ASAP. But again, this, unless there is an industry-wide solution coming through a government intervention, this will be a very, very specific question to each developer.
Well, this is being recorded, I think so, and everybody's found out that you do have extra money. So you will get a lot of calls now. You will be one of the few people with that. Mr. Joshi, coming to you on the financing side, what do you see going forward? Because and any suggestions, what can be done, at least in the short term, on the financing side?
So I must tell you, unlike Mohit, who are listed, Realty is not listed, and we are part of main L&T, and we have no debt. The Realty portion, we are only on equity. That's one part, and of course the parent has a lot of cash reserves. But coming to your specific question, I think for the stressed developers, I think they can argue for 2 points which can help. The first one is restructuring. That gives them a breather like nothing else. And COVID could become a very big opportunity, because it allows the banks to really back-end their interest, stop their interest, and all this NPA business can stop for a reasonable while of 2-3 years. And 3 years is a big time. And in the meantime, if they then again don't become greedy and align with right partners to complete the project, I think there could be a big win-win for most of the stressed developers. That is one part. The second part, which was also some companies were trying. Yesterday, you heard Deepak Bhai saying that the banks who became the owner were trying to align with good developers to carry the project through. So these two could find a solution for 70-80% of the stressed developers. So as a developers together, if they go to the finance ministry and just ask for restructuring, I think that is the biggest, as you say, one Brahmastra, which can resolve a lot of pain.
Great. No, that's good to know. And of course, I also feel that we have to tap all the, we don't expect the private equity to, be, especially international, to be playing in the market for the short term, but they will, of course, come in. There's also talked about distressed fund, and there is there is India still, as an emerging market, provides a lot of opportunities. And globally, you've seen when again there'll be a cycle where there'll be a lot of liquidity in the system, and then they have to allocate money to emerging markets. And I think India will come in. And like I was mentioning earlier, the positive is that the prices, they will be, there is no worry about overpricing right now. And especially, I would say in on the commercial side, I don't think there's a major issue. The government also, like, besides REIT, because of the dividend distribution test being taken up, I think that will revive again. And there are already established players.
Anshuman, just one thing on the commercial, I must say, because you are on many bodies with CIA. The GST set off is a must, because that takes the cost 17-18%. So that set off in some form is definitely required for both commercial as well as residential. Otherwise, the capex, the investments are just going up.
So I'm sorry, I'm Nayan intervening. That's exactly what CRIDA MCHI is suggesting to the government, that the present GST is either 1% or 5%, depending upon either your affordable or non-affordable category. But Irfan Razakji has been also pushing this, that we should get this 1% or 5% with input tax credit.
Absolutely.
So the moment you get input tax credit, the construction cost automatically can come down by 18%, and you can pass on the benefit to the customer and reduce the price actually.
Yes.
In fact, this is exactly in our recommendation through CII also, and now CRIDAI and NAREDCO, everybody has been pushing for this. And I just hope, and you raise a important point that will make actually will make a big difference. And that's why I mentioned, instead of going with the long list, GST is definitely on top, and getting this input.
Also, just to add to this input tax credit, I think government should really help us in demand generation, and if we can provide some kind of SOPs to our customers, if there is a stamp duty relaxation for this period of crisis time, if tax benefits can be given for investments in real estate, if people are buying second homes, if they get interest waivers, like we used to have in past. See, this will bring the demand back in the industry, and it will help everyone. It will help the developers. It will help a lot of suppliers who are dependent on us, and also the larger employees and workers. So I personally feel the fact that transactions have dried up, and if we can get these kind of benefits and customers start seeing value during this period, there could be a lot of positive benefit which could come in through this. So I would request if that recommendation is also factored in.
Certainly. I think, earlier maybe that time my voice was not coming clear. The fact is that whatever, this is the time for the government to really, really support, and whatever can stimulate demand, and certainly interest rate reduction, and then all the input costs, be it stamp duties or cesses, that should go at least for next 6 to 12 months. And even if we can stimulate demand for next 6 to 12 months, it'll make a difference, because the fact is that even now there is end user demand. There will be people buying houses. The supply side, there's been increase of supply of affordable housing, and even leave alone affordable supply at a price which can be absorbed by the market. So any what you call concessions or incentives the government can do, and it's not even that they have to infuse cash. It's just that of course they'll lose some revenue, but this will stimulate demand. I completely agree, Mohit, and with all different forums right now, the suggestions recommendations have gone to the government, and I just hope that the government moves faster than they normally do. I know there's a lot of challenges they're facing in many other aspects. Some of the discussions I've been on the government, they have prioritized. We just have to push as an industry for the government to prioritize real estate also and housing. Right now, a lot of the talk I hear from the government is to how to support the export industry first. Government wants to start. I feel that's also a big area of employment. They want to start factories, make sure that product starts moving from the port, the imports start coming in. That's a big priority. And of course, we need to really push where to make for government to make the real estate industry a priority. It's right now the feeling is it is there, but it's not the top priority. And I can partially agree with the government because million things are going on, but it's really up to us and all the bodies to make sure that we keep on hammering at this, for lack of other word, and bring attention to the real estate industry and try to get some concessions which the government is planning for other industries.
Guys, before we wind up, just putting all three of you all in a spot. So one new skill that all three of you all have learned during this COVID period, and one torture your wife has put you through. 30 seconds to each one of you all.
One skill. Sorry, I will.
Anshuman, one new skill you've learned, and one torture your wife has put you through.
Oh, okay. The first, I think I have not learned. I've been advising people. This is the time to learn.
And be honest.
Skill. I've not learned any skill except that only thing one I can think is that I used to earlier the Zoom, of course, but I've been doing Zoom calls for a long time, so I don't think this was a new skill. But the only new skill I would say is that I was so used to taking printouts for any number. So, for example, when we were doing a review of our financials, I would always take out printout, highlight it. So, only thing what I've learned is that because my printer at home, it ran out of ink and we couldn't get a new one. I then got used to reading these financial reports on a laptop, which I always avoided. I would always tell my, at my colleague or my assistant, just print out and I'll read it. So I think that's the only skill I can think of.
And drop your guard. So your wife is making you do vegetables, wash utensils. Kya kar rahe ho? Drop your guard and be truthful.
Actually, my wife is not making me do anything because I'm on a laptop or call since morning to evening. I only hope my wife appreciates how hard I work, because after work,
your wife, she's not being,
No, I'm coming to that. So I'm saying, I'm hoping she appreciates how hard I work, because normally you come back from the office, they don't think you're doing anything out there. And I stay, the only reason that my wife and I have not are still living peacefully is because most of the day she's some other room, I'm in this room, working. So I'm following social distancing, what Mr. Modi has said with my wife also. And so far we have survived 3 weeks. So social distancing from your wife is the key.
Mohit, you can be a little more truthful. You are a young guy. I'm sure your wife is a little less considerate.
No, Nayan just reminded me, actually Anshuman reminded me that this is getting video recorded. Now that this is getting video recorded, you can't let your guard down, especially when you're talking about your own life.
Mohit, we know how much money is in your bank now, so Godrej has in its bank. So that you can't take back,
Yeah, but I think the one thing which I have learned is actually, doing these video conferences and, meetings on these Microsoft Teams, Zoom. And also, I usually don't attend too many of these conferences and meetings. I was noticing on the right-hand side Zoom when I was speaking, there was a comment saying, "Who is this person?" So clearly, I need, I need to be more visible. And I think this gives me an opportunity to actually interact with people because, as I said, in a day-to-day, you're so busy with your, life and operations. But this is a unique opportunity to connect with everyone. So, one thing which I really enjoy about this, silver lining to everything in life is that I have actually connected with my, college friends for 20 years now. So, this is a opportunity to meet people, and as I said, Dharmesh, there's no way I'm, talking anything bad about my wife on a recorded call.
We are just wanting an honest admission कि आप हंडी कर रहे हो, फट्टे कर रहे हो, क्या कर रहे हो घर पे?
Anything and everything you can think of.
So it just tells people nobody's paid in this time,
Mr. Joshi still has to.
Joshi, yes.
I will. It's a godsend opportunity. First, I must thank Dharmesh that about a year and a half back, he reintroduced me his passion of fitness. So, Dharmesh, I must tell you that when the lockdown happened, all I got is the weights from the gym home, and I get my instructions on the WhatsApp on what to do for next day from Shiraz and his team, and I dutifully do that. That's one part. Second, I'm a voracious reader, so I'm reading macroeconomics a lot. You can see that. Third, there are lots of, for all your benefit of all others. There are 57 courses Harvard is giving online free.
Absolutely. Yes.
And I have done for one course, so I do that course as well. On your other point of pain, you have met my wife. So far, she is not a pain. For two reasons. I have two sons, and all three of us are very good cooks. We can cook and we enjoy cooking. But the torture is about to start as our washing machine has conked off today. So I do not know. I'm going to hunt heaven and hell to get that fixed.
Thanks, happy utensil washing, Yoshida, for now.
Guys, I could see why Dharmesh bhai asked this question for a fraction of a second. So I think all the three panelists should put back this question to Dharmesh bhai now.
Well, you have to answer the question also.
So working out twice a day. My daughter is giving me cooking lessons, so I've been cooking. So that's absolute new, although I don't know anything about it. And obviously, as Joshi said, I think there are wonderful. So there is Skillshare. It's a beautiful app for small skilling. There is Edme, which is Udemy, which has again all these Harvard and all the university courses. There is Masterclass. There is a beautiful from really some of the global masters. So all these new things, all of us are learning. So it's I think every situation. I think situations will be key. Will keep coming our way. I think the key is only looking at how we can pass through it positively and learn something new from it. So everything is can be fun and learning if we look at it positively.
Dharmesh, I had actually this morning, I would like to share, put 4 or 5 things because this was asked earlier, that what are the top 4 or 5 things, one should do in these times. So I'll be very quick and then I'll hand over to you because I prepared, not this morning, very quickly on the spot, I had written this and I hope it makes some sense. Don't like to give and give advisors, but I thought I'll just still put 3 or 4 things. One, of course, and most of it is known, so I may not be saying anything new, but just to reinforce. Number 1 is cut cost, and cut costs now, because everybody knows we need to cut costs, and this is what I'm trying to do in the company, be it on people costs, occupancy costs, debt costs. People-wise, for example, we have said, okay, no increments this year. We look at, restricting our employment. We're looking at what else the costs we can do. Of course, travel, entertainment areas are down. But as far as developers are concerned, look all the way, whatever you have to sell inventory or refinance, whatever, cut costs, but do it now. It could also mean outsourcing others. Number two, I would say, of course, plan for post-COVID, because it will, when things open up, lots would have to be done. And this is a time to really plan and make sure that we're totally mobilized after things open up. And, you can strengthen your processes. People talk about new marketing plans, financial plans, etc. My other thing is, which I always think about is, the all businesses, including developers, would be forced to take an informed decision. And what I mean by that is that, as everybody agrees, the margins have shrunk. And that's how it's going to remain. So the margins, every business, as the economy matures, as the businesses mature, the margins which we are used to, as the competition increases, are going to shrink. And that is a sign of a maturing economy. So we do not have the luxury of taking decisions which are not informed. Which, what I mean is that in the past, I remember 20, 25 years back, if there's a development had to be started, a developer will call 3-4 brokers and say, okay, bhav kya chal raha hai yahan? And then you decide and you start, doing the project. Even if you have not priced the product right, or even if you have not phased the product right, because everything was selling and because the margin was high, you could get away with, not doing that. But in today's case, you have to, take an informed decision. So again, not promoting our company, but I would say there are consultants like ourselves. Before you commit to a project, do a feasibility study, get the right valuation, get all the numbers of what the construction cost was going to be, what would be the financing, do the, all that, get the help of professionals before you get into the project. Look at what is the right pricing of the project, what can the market absorb, etc. So you would have to take an informed decision. I think that should be a big learning from this, because the cost of money is high, the scales are high. 20 years back, everybody did small projects. Most of the people on this call have bigger projects, and like I said, the market is tougher. So please take informed decision. Also think hard before you buy land by financing it by debt. And I'm sure most of you know that better than I, that when you're purchasing land on debt, just think hard before you do that. And I would say other is, of course, adopt technology. And lastly, I would say that this is the time we have to be a one voice. Developers from across the country, across different associations, across different real estate groups or professionals, have to really get together and push the government hard to support the industry. Like I mentioned, I live in Delhi. Because of different platforms, interact with the government quite a bit. This is a time, like I even mentioned earlier, that we have to be united, be one voice, and really make a big effort. Because again, Government of India, someone was mentioning, because everybody is an economist right now, that look, government should print money. This is what other countries are doing it, but we are not United States of America. We don't have, we can't give 10-20% of our GDP as stimulus like America, Europe, and others are doing it. Someone said, no, it doesn't matter. This will not, make a difference to the inflation. The fact is, our government bond is rated BBB, which is lowest, and lower than this is junk bonds. So I don't think Government of India has that much room to print money. It will print money. So as the government can't give us so many, like put a cash injection, but the least they can do is, like we discussed, reduce taxes, reduce interest rates, and all the lists that I mentioned. So we really need to be united and go after that. And last, of course, is that this shall pass. It will be very tough. It'll be tougher than what we have seen. But I personally believe very strongly in India and its potential. And we are so behind that we can only go ahead and go up. And we should really, we'll have to just buckle up for the next 5-6 months. And I think India will come up and we will see a faster recovery. I'm not saying fast recovery, faster recovery than most of the other countries, what I'm, what I get a visibility on. Thanks, Dharmesh.
Yeah. Thank you. And before I formally end the session, like to again call upon all our members across the board to come wholeheartedly and donate to the CM Fund. Also to donate to all the calls made by our President and our Secretariat. We are helping MCGM and all local bodies. So please donate whatever you can in these tough times. Is going to go to good end use. I thank all our panelists, starting with our moderator Anshuman Magazine, Mr. Joshi, Mr. Malhotra. Thank you for a frank and easy conversation. It was fun, Dharmesh. Thanks for organizing this. Thank you for all your fun questions. Thank you. Be safe and see you soon. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody. Thank you.
Okay,
Thank you very much.
Bye.
Thank you very much.
Bye, Dharmesh. Thanks, sir.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All of you.
Thank you, Dharmesh. See you.
Bye. Thank you very much.
Respected members and viewers, we are happy to share that we had 1800 plus viewers at peak for today's webinar and another 7,000 plus viewers on Facebook Live. I now announce tomorrow's session with Shri Devendra Fadnavis, Leader of Opposition and former CM of Maharashtra at 1 p.m. tomorrow. Thank you.